What is going on, everyone? This is Rancer, and welcome to another review for November the 4th, 2013. Is it actually November? Yeah, it is November 4th. Monday, November 4th, 2013, and we're doing another review for another game. Now, this one is not a console exclusive, like Sonic Lost Story. The other game that I'm going to be reviewing, that I actually beat the game last week. However, he didn't do the review after I beat the main campaign because I wanted to play the multiplayer and a lot of the side quests actually in the game. And then I finally played as much of this as I can and a lot of the multiplayer. The game we're going to be reviewing is Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. And I do want to keep in mind though, before we start the review, I have never played an Assassin's Creed game, by the way. I never did. So this is the first ever time I've ever played an Assassin's Creed game. Actually. So look at this review as, say, somebody from a perspective that has never played the series, and this is his first time, actually. So take it from that kind of perspective, okay? Oh, I did this pig in it. Anyway. Well, anyways, so, what is Assassin's Creed 4 about? Basically, like, from what I understand in the previous games, actually, when I looked them up, or sort of like understand the majority of the games and that stuff, it's pretty much like you're an assassin. Your main character becomes an assassin. You have to go on a story to defeat some enemies and stuff. In Assassin's Creed 4, actually, it's pretty much a pirate-themed game, actually, since that is what it's targeted to. Even though, like, what I've seen Assassin's Creed 3 is a pirate-themed game, but Assassin's Creed 4 is more pirate-themed. And by the way, Disney fans, no, Jack Sparrow doesn't make an appearance in the game. He does not. Not even Captain Barbossa. So, anyways, so the plot is that you play as a character named Edward Kenwell. Well, he gets stranded on an island with his old captain and then an assassin, and then he kills the assassin that tries to kill him, and now he becomes the new one. And then he disguises himself as an assassin that works for an evil government. That's pretty much the villains of the game. But then as soon as they found out that that it's not the person they were expecting, they pretty much, well, let's just say, they pretty much now send teams out in the sea and that stuff. And that's pretty much what I can see. And that's pretty much when it comes to the story. You're pretty much going after the bad guys. I'm not spoiling too much of it, though. Just want to give you the basics at the beginning. So anyways, what do I actually like about Assassin's Creed 4, actually? Let me start off with, well, first of all, let's start off with the story. And so, like I've always done, let's start off with the story of the game. When it comes to the story, actually, even though I've never played the Assassin's Creed series, though, this game does not focus too much, though, and when it comes to the last game, actually, which in this case is Assassin's Creed 3. It doesn't focus that much on it. It only focuses a tiny bit of it at the beginning, and I was kind of confused. But when the game gets to its own story, focuses on its own story, I actually pretty liked it a lot, actually. And there's a few reasons for it. Number one, actually, it makes some of the villains in the game, like the ones I mentioned, makes them seem a bit more make them more threatening, you know. Now, I don't mean up to the point where basically they're the best villains of all time. In fact, quite honestly, they're not really the best villains I've seen, but it actually does make some of the villains stink and threatening because they might know what's going on and what to expect or not. And I do also want to mention, though, in this story, they each character, like, that you meet along the game, like Blackbeard, and yes, Blackbeard is in the game, and that he's actually in the game, and a few others. Each character pretty much has their own subplot, but that's pretty much connected to the main plot, or pretty much Edward's story, since the majority of the story focuses on Edward, though, but at the same time, it focuses on the subplots between Blackbeard and some of Edward's other captain friends that eventually bad things happen later on for them, though, which again, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but because the majority of these bad things that happen near the end of the game, or pretty much near the main of the campaign, that is. And even though I do like the subplots of the games, even though I do like the main plot, though, well, actually, sorry, let me rephrase that, I messed it up. Basically, I do like the main plot, though, of Assassin's Creed 4, but I actually like the subplots with the other characters the most, actually. in my personal perspective, their subplots are actually way more are slightly more interesting. Main story. Not to say that the main story is bad. It is good. It's just that the subplot thing. It's just that the subplots of the main characters are more interesting. If there is maybe one thing I could maybe say though, I do have a small gripe with this. Well, in terms of the story though, that is that these subplots actually with the majority of the characters now keep in mind though actually it does happen a lot during the majority of the characters. It's just that on a few of them, however, they don't happen until way later on in the main campaign, not at the very because you don't really meet some of the characters later in the game. And quite honestly, that's kind of quite honestly, that is a small negative to me though. Because the majority of subplots do happen at the beginning with the characters. But the problem is a couple of them don't start the subplots or you don't meet them on until they're in the game. And even the villain subplots doesn't restart or go back to it and until later on. And I say later on as in halfway or even near the end of the campaign. But other than that though, the story is actually very good in my opinion. The graphics. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I think a lot of people know this. The graphics are pretty good. They're really great. A lot of the textures, which is actually pretty good in that, are actually really good. Yeah, hold on a sec. Well, pretty much actually, the textures on the characters, the designs, the different seas and oceans and that sort of stuff. It's all really good. It's really good. There's almost no negative to say. But keep in mind, I said almost. If there is one major gripe I have with the graphics of the game, is that it would be that some of the islands you visit, other than that, all look pretty much almost the same though. Now I understand they had to make different sizes of the thing, add in different trees and stuff. But when it comes to these small islands, though, you can pretty much tell that they just finished it within only a few minutes. They didn't put too much detail. No, now I can understand they're making it as secret islands that have never been discovered or anything. I completely understand that. It's just that my only gripe is that most of the small islands are pretty much look exactly the same, though. And they don't look like as well done as the other islands or whatever you visit in there. So, but like I said, the graphics are really outstanding. They're really great. In my opinion, though, it's really great. Now, for gameplay-wise, unlike Sonic Lost World that I played, where the gameplay is a decent but not very great, though. No, this one's pretty much the opposite of that, though. It's actually really good gameplay. Actually, it's very similar to the Batman games, where basically it has a mixture of both hand-to-hand combat and stealth gameplay. That's not the only types of gameplay it has in this. It's also an open world game, just like the Batman games. And here's what I mean. You have an underwater gameplay where you pretty much swim underwater, which you need an upgrade for that. Now, you also got the ship battles, which I'm gonna get to the ship battles for the last thing as part of the gameplay, and so forth. There's a lot of varieties of gameplay. But that stuff. Now, like you would expect from any open world game, like you would expect from any game that has an open world game like Assassin's Creed, anything like that. There's a ton of content in this, and I mean a lot of content. I mean, when I beat the main campaign, actually, I only did only a few side missions, and I hadn't even beaten 50% of the whole game yet. Though I just been playing a lot of the side content. While playing the multiplayer mode, and I think I'm close to being about 80% of the game already right now, in terms of trying to find the rest of the side content and that sort of stuff. Also, if you're wondering why the main light's not turned on, it's because it burnt down. Unfortunately, we can't change it, so nothing I can do. So, anyways, so other than that, though, that's pretty much what most of the game is. There's also the side missions in the game, which I'll definitely admit, though, there's a ton of side missions, and some of them are actually pretty entertaining and good, at least from my perspective. There's only one problem about the side missions. The majority of the side missions are exactly the same thing. Exactly the same. And I'm not counting the naval contracts or even the Templar Hunt ones in that. I'm not counting those ones because they are a lot of fun. That's I do have a connection to the main plot. It's just that a lot of the side missions, though, however, the rest of them, is pretty much like, although you will be able to get more money from there or solve more puzzles and get more treasures and stuff, it's pretty much literally the same thing, though, and it does get kind of repetitive, though. Now, I'm not saying that up to the point where you just don't want to give up on it, though. Although, I'm just saying that sometimes it will get repetitive that you might want to take a break from it and maybe try to go do another side mission. No, but that's just my perspective of the side missions. The other thing about the gameplay I want to mention is the controls. Now, the controls aren't bad. The controls are actually very good. In fact, the controls on the water is actually pretty done well. The controls on ground is pretty good. And the controls during the ship battles is actually pretty good. There's only one problem though about the controls I want to mention though, and this is just a minor complaint. Minor. My minor complaint though about when it comes to the controls is when you're trying to get away from an enemy or trying to climb things. Well, actually, I wouldn't say climbing things because I have ran into that problem though. But my biggest gripe when it comes, but one of my biggest complaints about this complaint though, however, is it's pretty much when you're trying to, get away from enemies. Now, let me explain what I mean. When you're trying to get away from an enemy, you're holding the ZR button actually to try to run away. That's pretty much what you hold. That's pretty much what you hold the right trigger for to actually run to make your character run. The problem, however, is if you get stuck against the wall against several enemies and stuff, you're gonna pretty much die very fast. I'm not kidding you. You're gonna die extremely quick if you don't be careful where you're watching, though. And if you get stuck against the wall and there's several enemies surrounding you, you're gonna get stuck and you're gonna die fast, though. Now, keep in mind, though, this doesn't happen that much, though. At least from what I've seen, it doesn't really much. Just as long as you know the area a little bit more as you investigate it, then you can pretty much get past them with no problem. Now, the other thing I want to mention about the gameplay is the ship battles. Now, before I get to that, I just want to see. Nope. And I got 12ish minutes left, so we're pretty much going too fast. Now, when it comes to the ship battles, actually, the ship battles, I have to admit, besides the solid gameplay and the gameplay that's a ton of fun, the ship battles are, in my opinion, probably the most fun one of the bunch. It's actually a lot of fun. Not really as fun as, say, the stealth gameplay or the hand-to-hand combat gameplay, but it's still a lot of fun that you can take. You can take down ships to collect these items that you need to upgrade your ship, or change the appearance of your ship. Buy some better weapons like swords, pistols, and more bullets and much more. You can also gather some more crew members as you sink more ships, or you can board them and make them a part of your army, load down your wanted level, and much more. And speaking of the ship upgrades, there's a lot of upgrades you can get to your ship to make it stronger. You can buy some upgrades that can not only make some of your attacks, like say a mortar, cannonballs and stuff more stronger. You could also give your ship a bigger life bar. That way it can survive more hits and more damage. So, there's only one complaint though about the thing though. When you're battling against other ships though, like say, when you're mostly battling against the ships actually, or other battleships, but one of the most important weapons I find that you get later on in the game are the mortar or cannons. If you don't know what those are, they're pretty much cannonballs, except they shoot them out from up into the sky and they fall down like meteorites to hit enemies. And out of all the attacks, those ones do the most damage actually. They're actually, against most of the battleships that have way more life force than your ships, they're very useful against that. There's only one, and this leads to the problem. If there's a lot of them coming, but you wasted so many that are on previous battleships that you didn't know you had a low amount, if you didn't pay attention to that, you're pretty much screwed because you're gonna die very quick from that. Yeah. And to me, quite honestly, that's kind of like trial and error though. If you don't pay attention, the amount of ammo you have left for your cannonballs to go up in the sky, you're pretty much, and if there's a lot more ships in front of you you're fighting that are way more stronger than you and deal more damage to you, you're pretty much screwed because not even your regular cannonballs can stop you unless you think of strategy that pretty much could save your butt in that throughout the entire ship battle. That stuff. So that means when you go by So that means when you go out the ship, you have to make sure you refill your mortar balls, cannonballs, as much. Refill every time you run low on some. And then upgrade it so you can stack more and they can do more damage. Which then you'll be able to actually handle it with no problem, though. But again, that's just my perspective. Though, what else is there about the gameplay that I like? Quite honestly, that's all I got to say for the game. But it's a ton of fun, and that it's a lot of fun, but I do think some side missions can get a bit repetitive, and I do think some of the problems with some parts of the gameplay can be fun. But other than that, I really liked the gameplay. When it comes to the characters, there's not that much to say though about the characters. Like I said in the story part, I definitely like a lot of the characters, mostly their subplots and their character development. Like it creates character development for the characters, like Blackbeard and that stuff. Like it pretty much describes most of the historic pirate characters very closely, and including Edward gets lots of character development and that stuff. So quite honestly, there's not that much to say though. I definitely like the characters a lot. The majority of them were well developed, actually, and that's pretty much all I have to say for the characters. Nothing else to say though. The villains, I will say, they're not the best villains I've seen, but they're decent villains that can be threatening at times to Edward and his friends. And last but certainly not least, this is probably the one a lot of people want to ask though. What do I think of the multiplayer in the game? And I gotta say this though, like the gameplay, the multiplayer is actually a ton of fun. Actually, it's a lot of fun. It's actually a lot of fun, though. Yeah, I really like the multiplayer. It has several different mini games. You got Wanted, Domination, Assassinate, Artificial Artifact. And there's a couple of others. I forgot their names though, but there's a ton of mini games. And a lot of them are fun though. You get to play as a different random pirate. So you get to hide amongst the crowd and so forth. Now in the multiplayer mode, you also get some I'm sorry, I got a hiccup there. Sorry. You also get upgrades. It's in that you can buy with your wallet via the online multiplayer. And some of them could include, like, maybe you can get yourself a new ability that can maybe help you out during some online matches, and so forth, yada yada yada. You can use your wallet to buy a lot of abilities and stuff, and add them into your ability slots that you can pick every time you die. Hey, you pretty much just press A to pick either one, any of the slots you made, or the game gives you by default, or that can help you out that can pretty much help you throughout the game online matches, I should say. And there's also the tutorial mode. Yes, the tutorial mode actually gives you more of what to do actually. That way, you don't have to go through the main campaign to learn the controls. You can just do it via the tutorial mode for the online multiplayer. So for people who just only want to buy the game just for the multiplayer, can pretty much just learn the multiplayer through the pretty much through the online multiplayer mode. You also got a quick match, which is pretty standard. Custom match, which is pretty much something used for your friends and stuff. And you get this other couple stuff actually. I will say this though. I'll be completely honest actually. Like, when it comes to the multiplayer of the game, there's only one problem I have with it. Is that, now basically for what the tutorial mode said, you hold the ZL button, or pretty much depending on, or just by button stance, left trigger, and you press the 1 button, which pretty much is either Y, square, or maybe even X button, either one depending on what you press. A lot of times, for what they said, when you see an enemy coming towards you, you're supposed to hold ZL, press it, but I prefer only ZL so it counts as though I'm pressing a button. And you're supposed to press the 1, and you're supposed to press the Y button actually, and you're supposed to press the Y button actually to count back, and you stun him in that. But a lot of times, for what I've seen, it doesn't really seem to work a lot. Actually, a lot of times what happens is, even if you react, a lot of times it does not seem to work. Actually, it seems like it only works. It seems, from what I can see, it seems that this only works if the opponent. It seems it might only work if the opponent gets close to you, then you attack them and then you stun them in that. But I've seen a couple of multiplayer players I've seen they managed to stun them right as soon as the enemy attacks them, and then they press the Y button at the right time to counter back and then stun them. But whenever I do it, it doesn't seem to work a lot, and I don't understand why that happens a lot, but... Or maybe I might have done it wrong, though. It could be just me, though, but this is a complaint, though. So otherwise, I really loved the multiplayer. It's a ton of fun, actually. And I will say, out of all the things, that's the biggest highlight. I think the multiplayer is pretty much the big highlight of the game. It's a lot of fun. Now, I just want to check the time one more time. Okay, so... Alright, so, in conclusion, so how do I give the game a rating out of 10? So, let's start with the story. So for the story, I actually give it a 7 out of 10 for the story. I definitely do like the main plot with Edward, but the story mode with Edward is interesting. It does create character development for Edward, but I prefer the subplots more with most of the main characters. But my only problem with the story is that some of the subplots with other characters actually don't get started until later on in the game instead of near the beginning or whatever. And so forth. For graphics, I think this one's pretty much no doubt. I give it a 9. It's pretty much really good graphics. It's pretty much really great graphics. For the gameplay, I give it an 8 out of 10 for the gameplay. See, the gameplay is actually really good. The gameplay's really good. It's a lot of fun. Despite a few frustrations, it's really good in my opinion, though. For the characters, I give it a 7 out of 10. Like I said though, the characters actually are well developed in that the majority of them are. But like I said in the story mode, actually, some of the characters' subplots, some of them just don't really happen until later on because of that, and because that some characters start the subplots and then all of a sudden they get forgotten or something like that. After more characters come in, you pretty much forget about them. But I still like the characters. The multiplayer, I give it pretty much an 8.5 out of 10 for the multiplayer. It's a lot of fun. It's a ton of fun. A lot of fun with all these different mini games to play. Lots of upgrades. And much more. Only problem is that I think the Y button counter thing doesn't seem to work a lot, but that could be just me. So overall, as a game out of 10, actually. I actually give the game an 8.75 out of 10. Actually, it's really that great of a game, actually. It's really good. And actually, I'm actually glad I decided to play this game, because this was definitely a big treat for me. A really good game. You know, a ton of fun. And I might even plan on doing this, people. Just to let everyone know. I might plan on recording some matches of me playing the game, though. I might plan on doing that, though. So, just to let everyone know. And so, that's just to let everybody know about that. So anyways, thank you for watching for the review, and I'll see you guys later. The next review, which will be, next 2 reviews, which will be Super Mario 3D World and A Link Between Worlds. So thanks a lot, see you later.